Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of What If Civilization Started Over. In the last episode, we saw a few events happening, with the biggest one being World War II itself. World War II is still continuing in this episode, but we saw a few major events happening, such as South China starting to collapse, the RPGAU collapsing, the Siberian Revolution continued. We've already had a few nations fall over at this point. However, most nations that were in World War II are are still in World War II. The only one that isn't at this point is uh actually there aren't any countries that actually have oh, these guys up here. These guys are the only ones that have fallen completely. But in this episode, we will see the continuation of World War II and possibly the end of it. I'm going to make this episode up as I go. I've normally had a small list over of details, but not for this episode because I accidentally deleted them. But all right, so let's get started with this. All right, back over in North America, there isn't anything going on anymore at this point. South China got rid of its colonies. They're pretty much up for grabs, but we're going to leave that for the World War II peace treaty. However, down in South America, things are a bit different. We see as the Cyan Colombian team, which I'm actually going to make a bit darker quickly. But this Cyan team, they will be they start invading into the Catalonian colonies, and this will go extremely easy. They have backing from, at this point, all of North and South America. The tribes aren't really actually invading. They're only in the war for one reason. All three of them joined for the same reason. That is on the province map up here. This right here, they're trying to keep or start or make it officially undivided and into one spot. And the same also goes for this line right here. Just because these countries are they're not countries, they're tribes. I think no WICSO series has ever done this, where there are still tribal nations up until World War II. And these nations are going to last a lot longer. But despite saying what they have said already, this purple one will just help speed up things. Of the three tribes, they're actually the second strongest. These guys up here, they're the strongest easily, just because they had Danish and a bit of yeah, they had a bit of Swiss intervention. The Swiss were better at it, but all right. Now moving back up into Europe, things are starting to turn around a bit as we do see the Catalonians begin to push back Gibraltar in Africa, recapturing a major city. However, Gibraltar has just stopped. All of, all of the forces that are fighting against the four new nations are really only fighting against Italy right now. Switzerland is yet to do anything, and then these two are a bit further away. So Gibraltar is able to move up, capturing the Valencia area, capturing this major city, and eventually making a naval landing on these two islands, capturing another major city. As for Galicia, well, things are definitely not going well for them, as best their once worst enemy, who completely got destroyed in World War II, has now captured every major city but their capital and is moving in quickly. However, down south, it's definitely no better, as the Dark Sign team has also now captured another major city from the or from the Catalonians, and they're looking at capturing another one. We finally do see Switzerland begins to actually do something as they move into West France, recapturing some of these areas here, and move and then capturing a major city. They then move a bit south. Don't ask what number there is. I just realized that. Don't pretend no one ever saw that. No one ever saw that. Okay? No one ever saw it. But they're gonna take over some of the land from Italy before moving down, cutting Italy off. And they actually have a really good reason for this. They're doing this so Italy is able to focus its forces out here to defend against the number one strongest country in the world. However, I would say the Swiss capital is probably the most developed city in the entire world. Although civilization did start like in right here in Germany, this was the first established major city. So I just think it's probably a bit stronger. Alright. We then see Switzerland will begin its invasion into the North French country, despite these guys being the least colonial of all the colonial countries. Just this was their only colony, and they really did not care about it at all. They were actually planning to get rid of it anyway. But now Switzerland is coming up towards their capital, capturing 4 major cities because that seems to be the biggest trend. They make their final push now, going into Germany. However, this is probably going to be their hardest yet, just because, I mean, you would think their hardest target would be Catalonia, seeing as they're the number 5 strongest country, like I established in the last episode. Which, if you didn't watch, I mean, what are you doing? This is World War II Part 2. You should probably see World War One Part 1. Or World War II Part 2. And you should see World War II Part 1. Alright, but now we start moving a bit north, as with Russian forces having less of a fight put up, they start sending forces up into the Nordic countries, and this goes extremely well for them, as they're able to recapture every major city that Sweden had lost, and they push it southwards, and eventually will meet up again with the Baltic Sea, surrounding and killing all of these troops. However, they don't kill off these people with like soldiers or any airplane stuff, or even ships or tanks. No, they use a special bomb Russia has been developing secretly. No, it is not a nuclear bomb. No, it is not a non-nuclear high-radius bomb. It's a new kind of bomb. It's they don't know what nu they don't really have nuclear technology yet. However, at this point, uranium has been discovered. It is being used, and they're starting to develop the first nukes. So what this bomb here is called, is literally just the mini nuke, or low radius nuke is its more common name, the LRN. Just, yeah, that's right. So they used this low radius nuke. It doesn't have a whole lot of uranium. It's mostly still like conventional bomb stuffs. I don't know what really to call it. But the Nordic Peninsula is now freed, and they don't care about fighting anywhere else. They freed the Nordic Peninsula. They're just gonna send aid back into Russia. However, that may be a bit too late, as Russia did not end up putting enough troops up out here. And seizing the opportunity, the Great Empire captured the Russian capital, and this will be a major or this will be a really good thing for them, as now the Siberian Revolution will start fighting back against Russia again, pushing deep, capturing a major city, and it then it then goes not so well as these guys down here have found the biggest weakness of these guys, and they start using flamethrowers because of course that's what every Siberian's weakness is. Literally, they are using flamethrowers against these guys. But with realizing what's going on here, like if I call will first use ice throwers or something, I don't know. No, they're gonna use water hoses actually, only during summer, but they will use water hoses against these guys to counter their flamethrowers, which they're also using against Lake Baikal. And then they start moving into this country as a. It's not that. It does. It may seem strong, but it's actually not that strong at all. And then the Great Empire is just like, all right, so we've set up a defensive front for you guys here. If you guys can just hold that, then yeah, we'll be good. So they use all of these spare forces to mainly just invade into Russia, and the three big power or three of the four big powers in the world are collapsing. So the top four are Russia, the Great Empire, the RPGAU, and South Chinese Union, and only one of these actually has an offensive front right now. If you look at it, South China, they're just being invaded. The RPGAU, they're just being invaded, and Russia, I mean, they have an offensive front right in here, but it's starting to fall back. The only reason this was able to work was because, like, um, or was because of these guys, not Lake Baikal. Lake Baikal will never help the Russians. They have a, these, Lake Baikal has a really bad history with Russia and China. But these two, or I should, I should say these two are the worst rivals in history. Actually, second worst. Galicia and Portugal are the worst. This. All right. So, but these guys will actually realize something. Flamethrowers, they work. So even in winter, these guys are, or especially in winter, these guys are using these flamethrowers, and they're starting to push back against these Siberian rebels. They don't get too far though before the rebels start adapting themselves to warmer temperatures or something, and they push back. And eventually, the Siberian Revolution will almost come to an end, especially in the south, as all countries at this point have adapted the flamethrower method, which is just what I'm going to call it. Except for North Japan, they can't really. North Japan really can't do much since these guys are on islands. The only thing they're able to do is liberate up here, only because um, or not Japan, the real Siberia is right there. So that could look interesting in a peace treaty, but otherwise, everywhere, or it's now back to the four original countries, and we're gonna move just a bit east or southwest, not east, as this front has definitely grown, as the RPGAU has completely fallen to Ethiopia. These guys are definitely gonna get a lot of land out of this. But something is starting to happen inside the Great Empire. Caspian revolutionaries start emerging more so out further here or further out here. But these guys are soon then quickly suppressed, just like the green team was over here. However, it's not as successful. They still some of them still remain as they flee into the gold country. But with that, the great empire will then realize, okay, so clearly we're starting to fracture. Their stability, once yellow, now goes all the way down to red. And that's definitely not a good sign, especially if you're a really large country. South China, they're more so able to handle it being in a red stability, which at this point, I think they've grown out to an orange even. But yeah, these guys, the Great Empire is actually, I think, they're one of two actual countries that are in red stability. The other happens to be Portugal. And if you look at it, Portugal, I mean, at this point, they look like they're nationalistic. Oh, if we go out to this map here, if we go up to right here, y'all remember what Brazil was in World War IV? Yeah, we see fascism. The first fascist country has now arisen. Going all the way up to ideology, they swap from a weakened democracy not to a fully fascist country. They're not colored as fascism. They're colored as fascist. Not fascism itself. They're still a fascist nation nonetheless. And okay, I'm just gonna shorten that up. Alright. So the first fascist country is now official. We had a communist country which disappeared. Now fascism's here. But with fascism, you have to have its counterpart in communism. So we're gonna steal this. And who better to make communist than the biggest rival of Portugal themselves? Despite being in a complete fallout at this point, these guys will use communism on their side to somehow get the hold of citizens, probably propaganda, and they start pushing back. They recapture three major cities, and then that's pretty much it. They don't really get to anywhere else in this. However, over in Catalonia, things are much different. The Dark Scion team's forces are starting to realize Catalonia's full potential. Gibraltar is able to hold their own a bit better. They still lose this major city up here, as well as the Balearic Islands, but they're still doing good down here. As for West France and their fight, it's going. It's not necessarily going good. It's not necessarily going bad, but they're able to help North France liberate some of their own land, and they're also able to help Catalonia liberate some of their land, even some of their land from Italy. And at this point, Italy has they've gotten to reclaim some of their old lands. They have now captured Corsica, and eventually they capture Sicily. Actually, don't know if Sicily was no, Sicily was originally Italian. That's not even Sicily. That's Sardinia. Pretend I pretend I said Sardinia. I keep messing that up. But the Italians will move in about there. No, no major movements really happen in the French for the Swiss. However, France is able to push them back, as you just saw. And this war is starting to become more and more stalemated, other than the one final major event, which is Nordic forces coming in to liberate the Russian capital, which will help the Russian military re-get itself. A lot of the military was out here, but all they're worried about at this point is pushing back the Great Empire. They don't care about their allies, they just care about themselves. They don't care about land a whole lot. They still want some, of course. Who doesn't want land? So they do move in right here. However, that does also not last very long at all, and the Great Empire will still move in a bit just to capture over two major cities and two regions, just to add up to the very common total of four major cities captured in war. Or in this one specific case, also in annexation. Actually, that's not even. Never mind. Alright. But we eventually see this war starts to die down. The overall support of it, even that itself, has started to slow. A lot of countries participating are starting to get ready for a peace treaty, and officially, a peace treaty is going to be held in the capital of this orange team. If you actually thought I was going to say Korea, why? But then Korea will make a very, 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 very bold move and pull an Italy-ish. They're still going to invade South Chinese land. However, said South Chinese land is Taiwan, which is under Central Chinese control. But then they're also going to decide to invade one of their old countries. But here's where the real Taiwan part of it, or the real Italy part of this comes in, as they will have China join their side in order for benefits, aka land. And China, I mean, who other to invade with Korea other than their biggest historical enemy? And suddenly, it seems Korea and China are the bestest of friends, as Korea will take over the rest of this central Chinese country, and China will as well. Alright, so we see Korea carrying out their invasions up here, and now, after this, the final event will happen as the, uh, I guess this they're gonna be called Hong Kong group. The Hong Kong group will take over the rest of South China. And with this, we will take a look at what this giant world peace treaty will look like. Not every country has fallen. There has there's been two. Two countries have fallen in this entire war. I do believe. But that's enough. Or three. Two of them major, two. But three major countries have fallen in this war, and these everyone at this point is like, okay, so like we should probably stop fighting. We realize we, as in Russia, made a big mistake, and that just spiraled out of control. And we killed thousands, no, not thousands, tens of millions doing this. Everyone's holding grudges too. Historical countries have came back. Even, or oh well, they already came back. But even groups that were like so dedicated to one country have rejoined the entire world. They were once part of a country, now they're not. Groups that are so anti-war joined this. And countries gave up one of their biggest possessions. But with this, we conclude World War II, and with that, episode 31 of this series. And if you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one, which will be the peace treaty.